Today's video is sponsored by me and these 3 graphics cards we're giving away. You can't see them because they're not actually here right now. Why? Because I want you to click the link down in the description below to see exactly what cards they are. Worldwide, for free, anywhere in the world where giveaways are not prohibited. So if you want to learn all about which cards we're giving away and how to enter and when it ends and all that sort of stuff, then you're gonna have to pause this video, click the link, and go and enter. Don't wait, you'll be sad if you did. You know, like Wayne Gretzky said, the only shot you miss is the one you take and you didn't 100% do. Okay, today we're gonna see if we can't figure out what went wrong with this motherboard. If you haven't seen it or you don't recall, this is the ROG Strix Z498 gaming motherboard that was originally used in my daughter's build when she built her first computer. In fact, here's a little reminder of what happened.
Yep, CPU is LED blinking.
Oh no.
All right, so that's fine. This motherboard has a BIOS flashback feature built in.
So what happened there is, this was an Intel sponsored build. They sent us a 10th generation motherboard to use with an 11th generation CPU, which was already, like I said in that video, extremely odd that Intel wouldn't even send me the right hardware for it, but that's besides the point because 11th gen CPUs are supported on 10th gen motherboards. The only thing is you have to update the BIOS on 10th gen motherboards to support 11th gen CPUs. Now you give up certain functionality that comes with 11th gen, but it will run on a 10th gen motherboard. And this is not the first time that ASUS's BIOS flashback feature has left me high and dry, where everything worked, where I was able to get, so what we did was we ended up doing a BIOS flashback, which is where you go onto the ASUS website, you download the BIOS file for the motherboard that you want to flash. You use the BIOS flashback port on the back of the motherboard, and I'll show you that right now. That will allow you to, without a CPU or RAM, and just power hooked up to the motherboard. In this instance, you could plug it in right there where it says BIOS. So you would just stick this in. As long as the BIOS is on here and you use the BIOS renamer tool that comes with the BIOS, which again is another really odd thing. I guess I don't understand, well, I guess I do understand why they use a BIOS renamer tool and they don't just name the BIOS that. It's because the BIOS file name itself represents the version of the BIOS and then it's renamed to something basic for the motherboard to understand. But I digress. You hold that button, the light starts flashing green, it flashes the BIOS, and then you're updated and you can boot. And that's exactly what happened. We turned on, we got a signal, we had writing on the screen, you saw a BIOS flash screen, and then it said updating ASUS Aura, because Aura has its own kind of an EEPROM as well. Then it restarts and it said updating the ME engine, which is the management engine. That's what controls the things on the board, like for instance, the power buttons and any readout codes and all that sort of stuff. So that's all controlled by its own little mechanism. In the middle of that flash, it shut down on its own. It just turned off and never came back on. And what I mean by never came back on is even touching the pins, like the power pins, like bridging them, because this doesn't have surface mount buttons. This is a fairly inexpensive, kind of a mid-range, no frills motherboard. Don't let it fool you. It looks nice, but it's fairly basic and you don't get a whole lot for your money here. So that's the exact behavior I experienced when first generation Ryzen first came out. And we actually had, if you guys aren't aware, when it comes to launch days and stuff, leading up to the day of the product where you see our video, and we say, hey, here's the new shiny thing that XYZ company wants you to buy. We've probably had to go through testing multiple times because leading up to the day of launch, they like to give us last minute BIOS update, or last minute update, last minute update, last minute update. Hey guys, sorry, redo your 40 hours worth of work. Here's a new update that fixes this problem. And they just throw it at you. Well, that's exactly what happened with Ryzen. And the motherboard, the Crosshair motherboard that I had from ASUS bricked. Grabbed the second one head off the shelf because they sent me 2. It also bricked in the exact same fashion. So what I want to see today, because I was able to later on, I actually had that happen 3rd time. I was actually able to get it to eventually come back to life by just continuously reflashing it. So my goal today is taking a 10th gen CPU, putting it in here, which is a proper CPU, doing a BIOS flashback, and seeing if I can't bring this board back to life. So let me go ahead and just sort of get it like set up here. In fact, you know what? No, let's take a step back. Let's do this the manner at which it's even advertised you can do it, without any RAM, without any CPU in there. that you can just plug it in, just give it 24 pin power, and that's all it needs. And let's see if that functionality even works. That's technically all you need to make the motherboard BIOS flashback feature work. So where's my power plug? I need a power plug. Just plug this in. If I hold that down. Wait, is the power supply even on? No, that usually helps. There, see, look, we got LED lights already on. So now if I hold this down, there we go. You can see the green light in there. See that? The green light is flashing slowly. So what's gonna happen now, you can also see the USB light. It's fairly dim in there. There's a blue USB light right there that shows that the USB is actually active and doing something. So we're gonna let this go now. We're gonna let it go until it stops flashing and it shuts off and the USB drive light turns off. And then I'm gonna do it again. And I might even do it a third time for good measure. So then what I'll do is I'll put our 10th gen CPU in there and some RAM and a cooler. And we'll see if the stupid thing will turn on. In fact, I'm even gonna use this guy. I mean, I just need to see if the power button works. Okay, so it stopped flashing, it turned itself off, so what I'm gonna do now is turn power off, and I'm gonna install our 10th gen CPU, not our 11th gen. I mean, there's no damaged pins. Let's take a look at that first of all. You can see all the pins are fine. My daughter, although she's 6 years old, she did a fabulous job at installing the CPU without me even like touching her hand. She got it down in the right spot. It didn't bend any pins. So we've now got a 10600K in here. You know how long it's been since I've used one of these? Oh, jeez. They're strong. It looks like something I would have built in PC Build Simulator, especially with that wiring. All I care about is whether or not I push the power button. I say push the power button, you know what I mean. Bridge the pins and something happens. Same thing. All right, let's see if putting a 10th gen CPU in there, bridging the power pins does anything. Should be these two right here. Nothing. I heard a little thunk when I did that too. Restart? Nope. Nothing. That's so incredibly frustrating. All right, let's try flashback again then, shall we? With everything plugged in. I don't think it's gonna matter. But that's just, I wouldn't sound so salty if this hasn't been like a reoccurring theme between Asus and myself. If it doesn't boot this time, then that's probably it. Because the only thing you'd be able to do at that point, what is that header? I don't know, so there's a little jumper header here. I kind of want to move it and see what happens here. That is a little jumper position that you can move. And I don't know if that's a clear CMOS or what. There's no clear CMOS on the back of this thing, just BIOS flashback. That says CLRTC, which we thought was clear CMOS, but I don't know what that little positional jumper is. Let's take a look at the manual. All right, so that's done flashing back again. That header is the CPU over voltage header. I think it's something to do with overclocking. I don't know. But now that we've just done that again, I'm also gonna leave the power on. Let's clear this CMOS here. Let's just bridge this for a bit. I don't think a damn thing happened. Let's see. Nope. Nothing happened. And I know someone's gonna be like, but Jay, you probably shorted it with your screwdriver. Nope, because this was all in the system using a power button. What if I use the jumper now to clear it? Let's see if that'll. Let's sit on there for a while. Turn that off, sure, why not? Yeah, it's one of these little guys. One of either that guy right there, or maybe that guy right there. Potentially that guy right there. It could be, nope, those are for power delivery for that. It could be one of these little guys in there. Something during the flashing process murdered this guy. And I'm so sick of it. I'm so sick of how many times it's let me down. Yeah, look at that, nothing. Nothing. If we hold down reset button. Nope. All right, well, That was a short and boring video. I had hoped to maybe being able to kick this thing Millennium Falcon style, you know? But no, that didn't work. They can't all be winners. And apparently neither is ASUS's BIOS flashback feature. That's a feature, I'll be honest with you. ASUS is a key sponsor of ours. That's not gonna change me from telling you guys, avoid using the BIOS flashback feature at all costs. You know what I should have done that day? I should have, and I said this in that video, so I do hold myself responsible for my frustration here. I said at the start of that video, if it won't boot with the 11th gen, which it didn't, we had a red CPU light down here because it has LEDs that will turn green or white depending on that portion of the post has passed, and then it goes on to the next thing and it froze on CPU and turned on a red LED. I said if it doesn't boot, I should take out the CPU, put in a 10th gen, let it boot, and then do a standard BIOS update within the BIOS, which would have probably been fine. Although it does do the same restart with the ASUS Aura update and then the ME update, I still think it might have worked fine that way. Because I have not had an ASUS board screw me by doing the traditional easy flash update utility type thing built into the BIOS. I have, like I said, had BIOS flashback screw me multiples of times. That's why it's so frustrating. So use this as a PSA. If you have an ASUS motherboard and you have to flash your BIOS, avoid the BIOS flashback bullshit at all costs. Because this is now the 4th board to do this to me. And a cricket just started chirping. Hey! We're trying to make a video here.
Is it outside?
Son of a biscuit.
Oh, it's on.